Welcome everybody. Always the first person after lunch. Before lunch you're always worried that people are looking to eat, and then after lunch you got to keep people from going into food coma. So my hope here is that this presentation will keep you all on your toes. We've got a great afternoon. It's been great already to hear some of the presentations I've heard. I think today when I tell you our story about EDGAR Online, you're going to hear some repeated messages you may have heard from some other ones, but I think that just is indicative about, I guess, how important managing the process of implementing APIs are. As Carolyn pointed out, I joined EDGAR Online in 2011 as its chief marketing officer to kind of focus the business and really figure out how we were going to start to inject some growth into our data and analytics piece. And we went through an acquisition, and subsequently I'm now president of the data and analytics piece of EDGAR Online. And so we're really in the throes of how we're going to be, kind of tackling the competitive landscape. So I'm going to tell you a story today about how we're going about this. I'll give you a little bit of background, and I'll tell you some of the lessons that we're learning. So as Carolyn kind of pointed out, we've been around for a while. If you are from the U.S. or you look at any kind of U.S. companies for financial information, you probably have heard of EDGAR Online. We've been really a well-known player in the institutional and retail investor space. And we're a trusted leader in providing data and intelligence from U.S. financial disclosures. If you've gone to any corporate website, you've gone to Yahoo Finance and you looked at electronic version of a U.S. filing, you've looked at information from EDGAR Online. And as Carolyn pointed out, we actually are in the business of selling data via APIs already. We've been doing it for at least 10 years. Which makes this, I think, an interesting case study for some folks as a company who's already recognized APIs way, when it was becoming something that, it was becoming more accepted. But now, 10 years later, we're faced with a situation where we've got some technology is antiquated and we've got to do some work to it. So as you can see, we sell financial data. We have a bunch of different data sets that we've created. We do the data creation ourselves. We have many different client touch points. We have our own FTPs. We have 5 different APIs. We've got APIs of redistributed market data. And then you can see the types of clients we've segmented. Okay, so we've got, it looks like 6 or 7 different types of clients that can be getting data from us, that when we sell it directly into organizations. We also have a B2C business where we sell web-based analytics. It's a product called EDGAR Pro. We also have another product called iMetrics. And people can subscribe to log in, get login information and be able to do searching and alerting on filings. We have over 1,000 clients, and they're names that you recognize, and that, again, you're probably working with folks or do business with folks that get data from us. Again, from Yahoo Finance down to, we've got small startups that are using data from us. So we've got an interesting business. The market realities, and you're going to see a lot of images like around dessert type food, because I figured after lunch it might be something that might be good. Our industry that we operate in is a $26 billion industry, which to some folks could be a very small niche industry. To some folks that could be a really big industry. It's definitely focused, and it's a niche industry. It's ruled by really 2 dinosaurs, names you probably have heard of, Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters. There's a lot of little dinosaurs kind of scattered around there, but it's ruled by dinosaurs. These are big companies. They've got big business models already in place. They have really established ways of doing things. And what we found is that innovation, where 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there's a lot of innovation occurring, it is pretty much slowed to a halt. And that kind of, in our industry, there's the evolution versus revolution. Our industry, there's no revolution going on. Everything in the financial information technology space is evolutionary. Things move very slowly. So it's really hard to come forward with something, this really cool new app or this really cool new piece of software or kind of analytics solution and change the way people are doing business. So, and this is just the reality. I mean, we are faced with this every day. So in a lot of industries, you can come forward with something and get a lot of traction very quickly, especially in a B2C space. In our space, that's just not the case. So this is a market chart. This is done by a consulting firm in our space. I'm not going to bore you with the details in it. Thomson Reuters and Bloomberg are the big boxes on there. The thing that you have to know is that EDGAR Online is not on that chart, which is depressing, right? So here we are. We got this great brand. We got some great clients. But when it comes to our market share in this space, when I look at it, I'm like, it just doesn't add up. So then I was tasked to look at our different business lines. And again, I'm taking you through this story so you can understand how we got here today from a management perspective. So you look at our different lines of revenue from 2011 to 2007 to 2011. You can see that our analytics business, the EDGAR Pro and iMetrics business, actually was larger than our data business back in 2007. But steadily, it's been declining. And then you look at our data business, and it's been relatively flat, okay? But we're starting to see, this data ends at 2011, we're starting to actually see some uptick in our data business. Some things to understand about this, and again, try to envision some of the products or the situations you're in, is I've got a product, this analytics product, has really big support costs. I've got a team of people that do customer support, and 95% of their time is being used supporting this revenue line that's declining. It's a Me Too offering. I'm just being honest. What I got, the analytics product, it's okay. It's not great. It's not changing the world. It's doing things that just check a box and say we have an analytics product. We have high turnover of clients there. It's a one-year subscription. It's, $1,500 a year. We have people who, once a year they buy it. Sometimes they don't want to use it or they don't use it very much. They cancel. And they're relatively small tickets. So again, not interesting if I'm looking to goose the growth of our company. But when I look at our data business, I've got relatively low fixed costs. So I've got a group of people, both in the US and in India, that are creating data sets. The work is done the first time I create the data set, and it's sitting there, ready for people to subscribe to it. So I have low fixed costs. I have unique data. And we understand US financial disclosures better than anybody in our space. I'm able to create data sets that I was talking to somebody out there. I mean, we get approached all the time that people are looking for information from a disclosure that they can't get. So I have unique data. I have high retention with our data clients. They don't go anywhere. Once they get data from me, they're not going anywhere. They stick around. And then they're bigger tickets. So whereas we're selling $1,500 a year subscriptions with our analytics product, we're selling $30,000 a year subscriptions and up with our data. Now, again, depending upon what business you're in, that may be attractive, it may not. But I'm looking at it going, okay, I've got a strong business on the data side. So then I started asking our guys about, walk me through. If a client wanted to come and get data from us, how does that work? So then I start talking to them, and they're like, our API clients, and our dev guys are explaining it to me in great, detail. They can go through our APIs, and there's custom APIs for some folks, and there's custom APIs for other folks, and one goes through this API, one goes through that API, and then they go through this, and then this guy can go that way, and we have widgets that go this way, and then we have FTP clients, and they all have custom FTPs, and then we have our own product that's using our APIs, and it goes this way, and actually that data doesn't match up the same data that we have in Yahoo Finance. I just ended it right there. I'm like, that's too complicated, too confusing. And if it's confusing for me, somebody who's been in this business 20 years, imagine somebody coming to me wanting to do business with me, right? So we basically at that point, had to make a decision as to what we were going to do. We moved to February 2012. Bloomberg comes out with a news story about they're opening their market data distribution technology. And I'm sitting there going, uh-oh, the big dinosaur is actually getting it. You dig a little deeper, and basically what they said is they're giving everybody a free access to their API. You get a free key. But if you want any data, you still got to pay for it. So they're really not committing to it. They're just saying it because it's APIs is a hot button thing, and they're not really, so still, you start worrying. The dinosaur might be getting it. Then I look at, I'm doing research, and Oren actually talked a little bit about this earlier, the phenomenon, what's going on with API growth, and the fact that, look, there's more devices being, out there, so there's more apps being created, so there's more APIs. Again, for me, I look at my data business, I want to be part of this game. Right around the same time, I get an email from Alex at Mastery. Now, go figure, how many of you guys you get spam every day? I get an email from Alex. He talks about ESPN opening up their APIs. And this has all happened at the same time, and I don't need to be hit on the head with a sledgehammer to understand there's something going on I need to get involved with. So at that point, it was like I got the team together and I said, we really got to commit to this. I forwarded the email to my product team and I said, let's start looking into what we got to do to do this. As I mentioned before about the whole idea of apps growing, you got to think about mobile, and it's certainly not going away. And mobile developers account for 12%, just about 12% of the global population today. In 2016, there's going to be 5 million developers globally, right? And I actually saw a statistic from Gartner recently that by 2015, mobile app projects are going to outnumber PC projects 4-to-1. So again, I'm looking at this going, okay, this is interesting to me. I want to start to do business with those folks. Again, more dessert. And so $53 billion space for mobile apps. Today, moving toward $143 billion space in 2016. I'm looking at this, and I'm standing there going, I want to be at the table, but I don't have a spoon. Okay? So it just became really clear at this point we've got to get aggressive. So we developed a plan. Our plan was pretty simple. We got to modernize our infrastructure. We got to simplify the user experience. We got to unlock access to new developer markets and innovate where our competitors are weak. So we're going to try to use a strategy, and David Bloom was talking a little bit about this before. And by the way, I'm the last David, I think, of the day, so I know there's a bunch of them. David Bloom was talking about this before. You got to make it simple for your clients to get access to you. And then also this whole idea that we can be creative and create a new business model that the dinosaurs can't compete with, I actually think will set us up in a good spot as we look at the mobile market and the greater non-category developer market. So here's our vision that we're working on. And again, understand, we're kind of at the beginning of all of this. We've been selling data through APIs, but we're now just starting to adopt a more aggressive modern API strategy. But again, you might have heard this earlier, we have three real constituents of what we're going to be delivering. We've got our own internal projects, we've got strategic partners, and we have public developers. What we want to deliver is company data that we create today in SEC filings. The great news is once I've got this receptacle and I make it easy for people to get access to it, I have what I call a data factory. I can create unlimited amounts of data from financial disclosures. So my goal is I want to make it easy for people to come to me, trust what the data that I'm providing them, and I'll create more data along the way, and then we'll be able to expand that way. And that there will be people who today don't think they need, or they don't know they can get U.S. financial data that need it in their applications. We're going to make it easy for them to get access to it. So back to this chart again, except a little different. This graphic showing what we've done is we've simplified the model. Instead of the multiple people, different constituents we're going to be working with, I'm saying one, just any kind of developer. I don't care if it's internal, external, developer. We have a proxy layer we're creating. Our friends at Mastery are going to be helping us with that. We're creating as a primary delivery channel a REST API, and we're modernizing all of our APIs. And then we're going to create data sets, and it's going to be one flow. Goes that way. As opposed to all those crazy arrows I had before, it's going to be a lot simpler. And what's also going to be nice, and by doing this, we're going to make it so that way clients can just get the specific data points that they want. In our business today, if you come to me and you're a developer and you want to be able to develop an application and you're a startup and you only want a couple data items from a filing, you're going to get the whole thing from me. You're going to have to pay for it. And the dinosaur's business model says, sorry, I'm Bloomberg, I'm Thomson Reuters, pay up if you want to do business with us. We recognize, and we get calls all the time from people in startups who are saying, I just want a couple data items. This setup that we're putting together will make it so that way we can now customize each experience for the user without really doing a full custom build. It's basically we're going to be configuring the access that they get. So for me, I look at this and it's simplified. It allows people to get access to the information they need, and it will open us up. So what are we learning? So again, we are really early, so we're trying to take our time here to understand what's going on. One of the things is knowing your strengths. You know, when we started this process, it was like look in the mirror. We have to look in the mirror and say, what are we really good at? What do we know? And what do we do better than anybody else? Let's focus on that, and let's not waste a lot of time on things that we're not good at. So we started down this process. It became clear we're good, and we care about U.S. financial disclosures probably more than anybody on the planet. I've got people who argue about really minute details that's going on within SEC filings that you would be like, your head would be spinning. I've got people working at EDGAR Online that do that. So we're really good at that. When we started talking about this, I had guys, developers, who developed our old APIs saying, why do you need to partner with somebody? Why do you need to go outside the organization? We can do it. Well, you can't take that guy and turn him into that guy. Okay? You can't take somebody who his experience is 10 or her experience is 10 years ago with the technology from 10 years ago and create something that's modern. So lesson number one, know what you're good at and focus on that. And don't be afraid to make the hard call and know that maybe you can't develop this in-house. So what we did was we hired a dev lead internally that had done it before. And within a couple weeks, I got slide decks sent to me in rapid fire about API designs and requirement planning. And it became clear, when you hire somebody who knows what they're doing, it goes faster. So instead of sitting there trying to argue and have meeting upon meeting about how we could do this all ourselves, we hired somebody from the outside, brought him in, who was up to date. We're actually getting traction. We're actually moving forward. It didn't take us as long as if we had tried to do it, the old way. You heard this before about eating your own dog food, and somebody who works for me asked, that's not one of my kids, thankfully. We're doing all this work to create APIs for our customers, and at first our developers were acting like that wasn't happening. They were kind of going about things the old way. Like, we're going to get data and put it into this application using the old method, and I said, wait a minute, why are we doing that? We got to eat our own dog food. We got to be using the APIs that we're building, and we got to be accessing it like any other client. We know this data better than anybody else. So if we're going to start putting it out there outside of our four walls, we're going to want to have some feedback, internally, so we know how that's all going to work. So we've actually been forcing our own developers to be using the new APIs that we're creating for our own application development and for the different products that we have. I think, again, we're early on in this process, but we've already started to uncover some great feedback, so that way when we start going externally and we start working with external clients with the new APIs, we'll be better prepared. The other, next lesson is knowing your customers or your consumers of this data. For us, we spent the better part of 20 years working with in-category developers, people from Wall Street firms or from financial portals that understand financial data. So we're going to be making this information available to them. They understand our content, and it's really just making it simple. But what we realized as we started talking about this is that there's going to be a much larger audience of non-category developers, people at hackathons, people who are working in their basement, people who are in college that don't understand financial data, nor do they care about disclosures as much as we do. And so we've got to understand how we're going to be able to serve them, because there's going to be a greater universe of those folks. So it's required us to implement some discipline around how we're going to market this and how we're going to package this and how we're going to support it. So really, when you walk into this project, if you're considering it, understand that there's going to be people who get your data right away, but there's going to be a whole universe of people who don't. And you got to be ready to serve them. The next thing is treating the APIs as a product. Again, you heard this earlier today. What I'm showing you is the REST API project plan for us from our Google Docs. You can see we have deliverables all the way through June, and it requires interaction from all different groups, from the executive suite to sales and sales operations, customer service, marketing, product management, development, and IT. We have weekly meetings with constituents from all of those groups to go over the project plan for our API launch. And it was surprising to me at how involved it was with all these different groups. It's not as simple waving a magic wand and it's all going to happen and the sky's going to turn blue and flowers are going to come up. It requires a lot of work from each of these groups. We started talking about customer service, and all of a sudden I get this diagram from our guy who's working on the customer service plan. And it became clear, I've got non-category developers and category developers. I've got to be ready to serve those people, have the right documentation, be able to allow them to have a good customer experience. It doesn't matter if you're at Yahoo Finance or if you're a startup, I want you to have the same experience. A lot more involved than we thought. So it requires a lot of coordination amongst all the groups when it comes to releasing your API. Lesson number 6. I don't know if anybody here has been to Tokyo. I have. And I went to Tokyo. I don't know any Japanese. So I go there. I want to eat. And so I walk down the street, and the restaurants all have this kind of setup. And that setup is really there so that way I can just go, I want that. And I just point. That's pretty much universal, right? I just want that. And what that does is it allows somebody who doesn't understand what they should be eating, you can take an educated guess that here's something that you may like. If you see it's salmon or tuna, you might be able to identify that. And whatever's in that bowl or on that plate is complementary to that meal. Well, when it comes to data and APIs, we're recognizing that we've got to package the different data sets that we're going to be pushing out there via our APIs, so it's appealing to people who may not understand how to use it. So income statement data, balance sheet data, cash flow data, maybe some ratios, maybe a data set that we know a certain type of developer may want. We've got to put that in little packages within our APIs. Now, what needs to happen is that developers need to work with the business to ensure that that configurability is there for us to do internally. So our developers are basically told, just create it so I have the flexibility to package the different data sets I want within our interface, so that way we can entitle people for that. So making the packaging logical, in my opinion, is going to enable us to get better traction faster, as opposed to, here's my data, just go pick the items that you want. I don't care if you know about it or not. Lesson number 7, the last lesson, is know what's differentiating. You have data that is commoditized, or I would call weak sauce. If it's commoditized data, it's something that everybody has, or it's prevalent, make it free. Don't kid yourself and think that you could sell data that, that it's out there and it's pervasive. And in our case, we're going to make data free that our competitors are charging for. So I'm excited about that, because the dinosaurs can't adapt their business model quickly when I turn around and say, we all know these 10 data items, these 15 data items that you're selling at a premium, we all know that those can be found anywhere. And they're low-value data items. Let's give them away for free. Draws people to me, they're doing business with me, and now I can try to sell them higher value stuff. And that's really here where when you have something that's special sauce, something that's unique to you, that's where when you start to make that available, you can spin that into gold. Because you're going to make the content that you're creating that is specific to you, that you're better suited to deliver, That's where you're going to make your money, not on the stuff that's commoditized. So that's all for my presentation. I thank you all for listening today, and we're really excited about being here and working with the folks from Mastery.
Thank you. So I think we have one question that was coming from somebody on Twitter. We had actually had a few questions, but I think we only have time for one, and that is, how do you plan to support or migrate users who are using your older APIs as you introduce new ones?
That's a great question. So the plan is obviously it's going to take a bunch of different types of analysis. Certain size clients we're working with already to prepare them for this. So we have clients like Yahoo Finance that we're already talking to now about how we're going to migrate them to this over the next year or so. So we're going to do that in a piecemeal approach with some larger clients. With some of our smaller clients, we may take an approach like, look, this is the better way to do it, and that's the only way we're going to be delivering it going forward. So we're going to kind of have to take a measured approach.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.